There was a dude named Melvin Manhoef. He was like one of the most terrifying strikers that ever fought in Pride. And Melvin Manhoef would fight in like his shorts. He was like a wicked kickboxer out of Holland. Wicked. And built like a fucking brick shithouse. But his thing was like, he didn't have shorts on. He almost had like a skirt on. Like his everything had like all these openings in it. I don't know what you would call it. There is a word for it, the way they did it, but almost like where gladiators would wear like almost like a skirt.
Yeah.
That's what he would fight in. That's Melvin Manhoef. So you see those things? It's like he kind of has underwear on, or he kind of has shorts on, but not really. Like everything's just, if you find a video of him fighting, it's like it's all swinging loose. And because of that, like he had his shorts never bound up. Like sometimes you see Thai guys fight, they actually touch. Oh, that's him wearing shorts. That's an MMA fight because he had to wear it for an MMA. Google K1, Melvin Manhoef. There he's got. That's when he's wearing it. See it? If you can see him when he's fighting.
Does anybody else wear that or just him?
This dude is 185 pounds, by the way, and he knocked out Mark Hunt with one punch, which is fucking crazy. Watch this. Boom! But you see those shorts?
Yeah.
Wild shorts. Mark Hunt was one of the most durable heavyweights of all time. And Melvin Manhoef is like easily 60 pounds lighter than him, and he knocked him out with one punch. He was a monster, but that's what he wore. These like, it was like a skirt.
So they have that kind of weight disparity in
Pride did some wild shit, man. They did some wild shit. They had freak fights where they had Nogueira, who was the Pride heavyweight champion, who was an immensely talented jiu-jitsu black belt. He fought this guy Bob Sapp, who was 375 pounds with abs. I'm not kidding. Like, if you've never seen Bob Sapp before, when you see him fight, you don't believe it's a real person.
Yeah.
You think it's a video game character, or this is CGI. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
You need to see this. Bob Sapp versus Nogueira. He's so big. So big. And he pile drives Nogueira within the first like opening seconds of the fight, like a literal pile driver. 375-pound man driving another 240-pound man's head first into the ground. Look at the size of Bob Sapp. Yeah, dude, look at the fucking size of him. So this is the beginning of the fight. Watch this. Pile driver. Boom. This is how the fight starts. So Nogueira literally gets his spine crushed in the very first seconds of the fight, fighting a guy who's a legitimate 130 pounds heavier than him. Look at the size of the guy. And they had a lot of fights like this. Like, Bob Sapp wasn't the most talented MMA fighter, but he was certainly one of the biggest.
Yeah, that's just brute strength right there.
Well, he had some talent. He did some skill. He worked out. You couldn't survive if you just had brute strength. He definitely trained in martial arts, and he trained with my friend Maurice Smith, who was the UFC heavyweight champion, and he won multiple championships in multiple different organizations. Maurice was a legit striker, very, very talented fighter. And he trained him. So he was training Bob Sapp when Bob Sapp was kickboxing too. But he was just a freak. Like, you were like, what am I seeing?
Yeah.
He was so big, dude. He would start walking towards guys with his fists up, and you're like, how is that a real person?
Yeah. So is that how Pride was? Just sort of
freak shows.
Yeah?
Yeah. They had Hongman Choi fought Fedor Emelianenko. Fedor Emelianenko is arguably the best heavyweight of all time. There's a real good argument that he's the best heavyweight. In my book, it's like there's a few guys in the running for the best heavyweight of all time. One of them is Fabricio Verdum. He gets overlooked because he tapped almost everybody. He tapped Nogueira, he tapped Cain Velasquez, and he tapped Fedor. He was the first guy to beat Fedor. And Fedor went on this long run. He caught him in a triangle and tapped him. So in my mind, he's got to be in the argument for one of the greatest heavyweights of all time too. So you got Fedor, him, and Cain Velasquez. Those are the three guys that most people, when they look at the greatest heavyweights of all time, they look at those guys. And then maybe Francis Ngannou, if he continues his title run, one day he'll be thought of that way as well. But it's like, and then of course Stipe Miocic, who's like the most accomplished heavyweight of all time. So those, I guess, yeah, you have to say those four. Those are the guys that everybody, if there's an argument for who's the greatest heavyweight of all time, it's hard to say. And you might have to go, the thing is, it's like, all of them are really good, but Fabricio Verdum tapped all of them. There's something about that.
Yeah.
There's something about he tapped all of them, except Stipe. Stipe knocked him out. So I was like, maybe Stipe's the GOAT. But either way, it's like there's a number of guys, and Nogueira's in that group. Nogueira in his prime is in that group. And they were all over at Pride. And they had crazy, crazy fights.
So Pride, it's not around anymore? Or
No, the UFC bought Pride, and when the UFC purchased Pride, they just closed shop. They were going to keep it running for a while, but I think it was so chaotic, and I think they decided to just absorb it into the company. And they took a lot of the fighters. The only guy they didn't take was Fedor. Well, there was a few other guys, but Mark Hunt came over from Pride. I think Mark Hunt, like, he wanted to fight in the UFC. They wanted to buy him out, and he said, no, I want to fight it out in the UFC. And then there was a few other guys that came over as well. But it was Krokop, of course. But it was, the end of an era, unfortunately. For people who are fans of the sport, there was something about the Pride era that was a really unique time in MMA. Like, we'd have to watch it at 4 o'clock in the morning because it was airing in Japan.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it was a Japanese company?
Yeah, it was a Japanese company. So it was live on pay-per-view. We'd have to watch it, at 4 in the morning. And then they started, they would have fights, and then they wouldn't show it on TV until like a week later or even more sometimes. And so you'd have to stay away from the internet because everybody already had the results, and they posted all the spoilers. It was interesting. It was like they were figuring it out, but the Japanese did some gangster shit. They had freak show fights. They had a lot of freak show fights.
Yeah, it's kind of like early days of...
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember, when I was a kid and MMA was coming up, it was just insanity. It was like Street Fighter.
Yeah. They have big, giant guys fight small guys all the time.
Yeah, it was like battle bots with humans.
Well, they just like the aspect of, like, the freak show. Like, there's this woman, Gabby Garcia. She's an enormous Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. She's really big. She's like more than 200 pounds, like maybe 230, maybe even 240. She's really big. And they'll have her fight like a maid. It's like
it was kind of like, in its infancy, it was like, will karate beat sumo? And that's what it was all about. Like, will the art form of karate triumph?
They still kind of have that. But they had like Akibono versus Hoist Gracie. And Hoist Gracie is like 180, maybe 190. Akibono might be 400 pounds. And I'm not kidding.
Jesus.
See if you can find that. This is like the fact that this fight was a legal fight to take place. Like Nevada State Athletic Commission would not sanction a fight between someone who's a legit 210, 220 pounds heavier. Spoiler alert, Hoist Gracie wins. That's what a bad motherfucker is he. So Hoist caught him in an armbar. Is this the beginning of it? Is where it shows it from the beginning? And he taps with an armbar. But if the thing about being a guy that big is like, how much gas in the tank do you have?
Yeah, not a lot.
That guy's so overweight. As much as he has skill and much as he's a sumo guy, and he's probably been competing his whole life, like he's too big. Like you can't. You're not going to be able to compete against a guy like Hoist Gracie. Hoist Gracie can survive. See, and he's also really comfortable fighting off of his back. So he let the dude rush him.